Marie and I took a 7-week trip to rural India to immerse ourselves in the daily lives of the Indian people. India has a population of 1.2 billion. There are 500,000 villages in India with 300 million people that do not have electricity or sweet portable drinking water. We flew to Mumbai and registered at the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel. We then arranged for a personal guide and a driver. We drove to the main railroad station to observe the Dabbawalas carry out one of the world's most efficient coded food delivery systems as identified by the Guinness Book of Records and featured on Believe It or Not. The system was developed by the British in 1890 to deliver English food to the British staff members. The name Dabbawala means box carrier. There are 5,000 Dabbawalas in Mumbai whose responsibility is to deliver over 400,000 lunches prepared by wives and mothers to officers' schools every workday, even during the monsoon period. The cost for the service is $7 to $9 per month. Dabbawalas work in teams of 4. The coded lunch containers, or tiffins as they're called, are picked up from homes at 9:30 in the morning and taken by train to the many distribution centers for delivery that covers 10 square miles in Mumbai's suburbs. The delivered tiffins are collected by 5:30 in the evening to be returned to homes. This procedure is followed 6 working days a week. The coding system is so effective that the margin error of delivery is said to be 1 out of 16 million, or 99.9999% deliveries made without error. This man is tying personal notes to the tiffins that were written by wives and mothers. Bicycles are also used to deliver the tiffins, while other boxes are carried to nearby locations. We walked on to photograph life as it is being carried out in the suburbs. The sign warns of possible negative health effects if food is eaten that is prepared in the streets because they are not prepared in the most sanitary conditions. This man is preparing betel nut that is said to possess favorable qualities, but is also consumed as a stimulant such as cocaine. We toured parts of the city and came across an extravagant wedding procession of a Jain religious group. Jains are one of the wealthiest groups in India. They are industrialists and land developers. We are welcome to walk with them and to photograph. The groom is being taken to the wedding site in a vintage BMW instead of mounting the traditional gray stallion. The bride is driven in a darkened limousine to not be seen until she arrives at the temple. Women are exhibiting a sample of their wealth, and they later break into the village line dance. We gave our thanks and drove out of the city and experienced that cattle have the right-of-way over highway traffic. We stopped to visit this temporary housing alongside of the highway. As Marie approached the tents, she was immediately surrounded by children wanting their photographs taken and by ladies with trinkets to sell. We were told that the men and women from this tent compound were hired as manual laborers for the repair of the highway. The women are transported to and from the campsite. The responsibility of the girls left behind is to bring fresh potable water to the camp and to help prepare meals. The boys are not involved in these tasks. Once the work on the highway is completed, they will move on to another work site. We drove on and stopped to photograph this horse-drawn carriage. We were told that a very wealthy Hindu family was preparing for a wedding ceremony that would take place in 3 days. 1,000 guests were invited to attend. We were permitted to photograph the preparation, but not the wedding ceremony. The parents of the groom are blessing the preparations. We returned to the site 3 days later and followed the wedding procession. The procession also had the right-of-way over traffic. The relatives of the bride were riding the elephant while the groom and his sister were in the carriage. As it neared the temple where the wedding would take place, the groom mounted the stallion and began showing off his riding skills. Invited guests are bringing gifts for the newlyweds. We returned to our hotel and left early the following morning to visit the local cleaning establishment. This is a syndicate that takes in 1 million clothing articles from hospitals, clinics, and hotels to be cleaned. An ingenious coding system is in place to assure that all articles will be returned to the proper locations. Driving on, we came across another washing at a riverside. The mother has prepared her daughter well for work that she may be doing later in life. The clothing is bundled and returned to the proper address. Our guide then took us to take part in the annual one-day Siva religious ceremony that was taking place in a neighboring village. We did stop to purchase locally made handicraft as souvenirs, and to watch this young girl creating beautiful garments to serve as part of her dowry wardrobe. She's expected to create a minimum of 15 outfits before she can marry. You can see the pride that she is feeling as Marie, a textile designer, examines and admires her beautiful work. Here our guide is modeling one that she has completed. A short walk from there was this group of musicians that performed for us. We thanked them and walked to the festival site. As people enter the temple, they rang the bells to honor their gods. We entered a large arena to see the dancers perform the village line dance. The following morning, our guide drove us to a different village area, and we stopped to photograph these camels. We found that they are not frightened by the fast-moving traffic. The responsibility of the boy is to assure the safety of the camels. Driving on, we came across these ladies dressed in beautiful saris at work carrying out the very difficult task of digging cow dung from this rocky soil and to carry it to the machinery that separates the dung from the soil. From there they are taken to be bagged. The man's role is to just sit and be sure that the machinery is working well. Continuing on, we stopped at a local coal-producing company to document that ladies also play an active role in this very unhealthy environment. They did not mind being photographed. Later, we came to a site appropriately named by our guide as a local supermarket for cow dung cakes. The cakes are used for heat and for cooking in the villages. The task of these two ladies is to gather and deposit dung where they will be patted into shapes of cakes by women and girls while the boys play. This little girl is learning to shape the dung as taught by her mother and grandmother. The cakes are for sale, and they do deliver. We found that cow dungs know their way home. In the yard, ladies collected droppings, shaped them, and placed them on walls to dry for use and to sell. You may also buy them at the open markets. We drove on to Varanasi, the sacred city of the Hindus, and went directly to our hotel. There we were met by a new guide. He took us to a private boat and were taken to the sacred site where cremations occur 24 hours a day, every day of the year. We were told that it is believed that those who bathe in the sacred Ganges River Varanasi or are cremated in Varanasi will be cleaned of their past sins. We drifted far enough away from the cremations to be permitted to take a few photographs. There is always a large quantity of logs available for sale. We were walking through the narrow walkway when a group carrying a corpse passed by. Returning to our boat, we photographed the men placing the body where the cremation would occur. That evening, we returned to the cremation site to see the sacred Arti fire prayer service for the reincarnation of the departed souls. A similar service was also conducted at a nearby temple. We remained to photograph evening cremations. Following morning, we flew to New Delhi and drove to Agra to see the beautiful Taj Mahal, the crown jewel of the Mughal period. The white marble structure, built in 1653, is beginning to turn yellow because of air pollution. In Agra, we joined 3 others that were also traveling to the seat of Vrindavan by train to photograph the celebration of the sacred Hindu festival called Holi. We arrived at Vrindavan a day before Holi and found that the celebration had already begun. We joined people in the streets who were covered with color. Holi is a celebration of the victory of life over death and the return to spring. It is celebrated by showering colored powder and colored water on everyone in the streets. Nobody escapes this. Early Holi morning, we talked to visit the sacred Hindu temple, but found ourselves crushed in this massive crowd of several thousand people. We had very little control of our movement. Many were injured, with 3 seriously. We managed to escape the crowd by paying rupees to the owner of a business to permit us to climb to a roof. From there, we were able to photograph freely. It was a very frightening experience. Here we see a Brahma covered with colored powder, throwing powder at the masses. These two female teenagers were posted at the entrance of the temple, who forcefully would not permit anyone to enter the temple with colored powder. She attacked this man who had become belligerent. And this is how we looked at the end of the day. These clothes were left at the hotel. The following morning, we prepared for an early afternoon checkout and a return home. Marie saw that men were lined up down the street to receive blessings from a Brahmin and decided to experience that. She got in line and waited patiently. This surprised and pleased the locals. As the Rama approached Marie, she pointed to a spot between her eyes where she wanted the colors. The Hindus call that point the spiritual eye. The holy man turned out to be a rascal.